Okay. That was spot on, huh? Recording in progress. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scientifically Speaking. Today, I have a wonderful, beautiful guest. Her name is Carol Lamb. Oh my gosh, I'm literally spitting all over the mic. All right, so Carol Lamb is a Boston-based content creator and BU alumna. BU is Boston University. She recently left her research technician role and is, oh my gosh, I'm literally illiterate. Let me backtrack. This is literally the behind the scenes. So
Take your time.
You're like a mom. You're like, all right, son, take your time, sound it out.
I'm very, very patient. It's all good. And also, like, I fumble my words so much, well, I will be in your position in the future. Sure.
Okay, anyway, so Carol recently left her research technician role and is ready to spill the motherfucking tea on her experiences. All right, Carol. So the first thing that I noticed about you before even joining this little Zoom call was that your last name is Lam. I immediately looked on your resume and your LinkedIn. I stalked your LinkedIn. You're Vietnamese American.
Yes, I
And I'm like, bitch, I'm gagged because I don't see a lot of Vietnamese people in labs and research. So to see like another fellow Vietnamese person, oh my gosh, kudos to you. Thank you so much.
am.
You are
Yeah.
amazing.
Actually, I never thought of that before, but it's so true because I don't know if you've like seen this like study or data on this, but I remember in high school or something, like they were talking about like whatchamacallit, like I guess like equality or like distribution of representation in like colleges and stuff. And I think it was something like 50% of Vietnamese people don't have a college degree. And even though you would think like, oh, like all the Asians are like doctors, lawyers, or whatever, prominent roles, there's still disparities within the Asian community about like how some people just don't have a higher education.
Right. That is so true.
Tidbit.
But I wonder what's the breakdown of that study because is it like immigrants? I don't know if your parents are immigrants. Mine are. So like
Yes,
they,
mine are.
ooh. But I wonder if like that 50%, if that includes like our parents, like their generation, or is it like a specific breakdown of, okay, I'm gonna backtrack. With us, I always get confused. With us, are we first generation or second generation immigrants?
If your parents immigrated here, then you're first generation. If your grandparents immigrated here, you're second generation.
Okay.
Does that makes sense? That means your parents were first generation, but your kids, if you have kids, will be second generation.
I'm asking because I had a meeting with a film producer last week, and he's Japanese American. And I think he said that within Japanese and Chinese culture, if like the parents came here, they're like the zero generation, and then their children are the first generation. Something like that. I'm probably butchering it. And
you know what that reminds you of? It's like in
what?
Europe when they tell you like the first floor is floor 0, and
Yeah.
then like you book an Airbnb and it's like, oh, your apartment's on the 3rd floor. You're like, wait, bitch, I have to walk up 4 flights of stairs.
Or you know, like in Vietnam, the age when you're born, you're I think already like a year old.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that concept too. But also another thing, when you mentioned like the floors at Boston University, is it like very hilly?
Honestly, Boston University is like a big strip. Like we're on like a busy road, basically, and it's like very spread out. I don't know if have you ever been to Boston?
No, I haven't been to a lot of like the northeastern states. I've only been
I
to
see. I feel
I've
like
only
one
been
day
to,
you gotta because it's like a
I
huge
know.
biotech,
I want to so bad, but here's the thing. I hate the cold. I hate the cold so much. I hate the
I
cold.
think I remember
And
hearing you say this
yes,
on
I
one
know.
of podcast.
Oh my gosh, it's like full circle. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I noticed you didn't post an episode last week.
Oh no, I'm getting called out. I'm getting called out. Okay, by
I'm
the
kidding.
time
I'm kidding. I was like, oh no, am I the bottleneck? I was like, I should have like booked it like a week earlier. I wasn't really doing anything last week, but
no.
I like started a new job, so I was like, oh, like I don't know what the vibe is like my first week.
No, I actually have a couple episodes queued up. Well, I have a lot of recordings queued. I just have to edit them, and that editing takes time. Okay, so Carol knows this, but for those that are listening, yeah, these recordings like are about 45 minutes long, but these actual conversations, like the raw audio footage, is about an hour and 10 minutes long. But I say a lot of like yeahs, like literally, and I have to go back and edit them out. And then sometimes I also will talk over the guests and vice versa. I either edit or mute us out. And so that takes quite a while. So even though the recording is like an hour long, I spend hours because I also procrastinate hours editing these podcasts. And so last week it was a really, really crazy week for me. Hold on, let me pause my Slack notifications because my lab is going insane right now. Well, in 40 minutes, they're gonna grab dinner for one of my colleagues' birthdays. And so I was like, they're like, Darian, you're going, right? And I was like, I'm gonna be going, but I'm gonna be a little late. They're like, why? And I'm like, I'm recording the podcast. You know about the podcast too. And they're like, okay, we totally understand. So I was like,
That's
okay,
so funny.
yeah.
Are
I mean,
you close with your lab mates?
with this lab, yes, I'm very close. I am very, very close to this lab. I was really close with the lab members, my previous lab, but we bonded over how much we disliked how stressed we were from the lab and how much we disliked the managing style. And I feel like that's probably not the best way to start a friendship. A lot of our core memories where I feel like are tainted with some of the stress and some of the bad memories from
You're like
our
trauma bonding.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly, exactly. And with this lab, we are not trauma bonding. We are like building genuine friendship and connections. And not saying that I didn't do that in my previous lab, but you know what? Like it's more positive. That's what I'm trying to say. And I'm sure like you have a lot of interesting stories from your previous. Oh my God, my
So
voice.
many. Oh God.
Oh, okay. Like let me get ready. Let me mentally get ready because I am a little thirsty. I'm a little parched. I need
I
some
gotta
tea.
say, some of your previous, like your first few episodes when it was getting really juicy, I just like I turn the volume up, lean in, like I'm ready to hear what your guests have to say. And like I think it was your first episode, your friend Jessie, like when you cut in, we're like, oh, I have to edit this out. I was like, no, because it was like, I mean, I've had those experiences and it's so relatable. And I was like, yes, we need to like, I think what I love with your podcast is like it highlights like so many issues that like, you know, as undergrad or like, you know, like when you're an undergrad and you want to like work in healthcare and stuff and like you're like bright-eyed and you know
Yeah.
shiny and new and you don't like really know like what to expect and
Yeah.
you're a little naive like this is so important because you know we're exposing these hoes who are trying to exploit young children for like
Oh,
labor.
no.
Okay.
Yes, 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 yes. A lot of PIs, I feel like, can take advantage of undergraduate students knowing that some of these undergrads can work for free or like work for class credit. And so they'll, in some type of way, can and probably will blackmail or like really push students. Oh, well, if you don't do this, then I'm gonna give you a B in this class.
But like
Some,
you know that they care a lot about their GPA, like you
yeah,
know at the end of the day like let's you know not play ourselves, like numbers
yeah,
matter like when you're
yeah.
trying to go to med school. So
Exactly. PIs know what like can really hurt them and will use that to and hang it over their heads. Well, you want this? You gotta stay later. You gotta do this. Was your previous lab like that?
So let me say up top that I think my PI is a good person.
Hmm.
Okay. And like, I think that you can think someone's a good person, but also have disagreements about their management skills and their management
Hands down.
style.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's like, it's hard because it's like, I love him as a person, but there's just like certain things that are like his weaknesses and like stuff that I would change personally.
Yeah.
And like, you know, at the end of the day, like it sucks because it's like when your management, you know, I don't know what the correct word for this is, but like when your management falls short, like you're
Hmm.
the one as like an entry level employee, like, you know,
Yeah.
you get the short end of the stick most of the time
Oh yeah. Yeah.
or all of the time. I'm
Yeah.
being generous, I think. And that's like tough because it's like you see it the most because you're like, at least like for me, like I worked in a clinical lab. So I basically ran the daily operations and like
Yeah.
there was like some drama. I
Can
don't know.
we
It
can
was
we can we talk about some of the drama right now?
yeah. Well, okay, wait. Did I go into like what research I did? Maybe
Oh
we can
no,
go
I'm
over.
we're like okay, I am like literally I'm just like I want the tea now.
I'm
Okay,
just
yeah.
I'm just trying to make your editing life a little easier because then it's like,
Oh no.
okay, these stories are not relevant if I don't actually
Oh
like
no,
say what I
I
did.
it's literally wherever this conversation goes, it goes whatever way it wants to.
So I went to Boston University. I graduated in 2019. I did some undergrad research at
Hmm.
a at a local hospital within the
Yeah.
city. I can't disclose which one, but it was a neuro lab, and I worked.
Say their names. Say that. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I can't expose them like that, but
Expose them. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Kidding.
but yeah, and it was a neurology lab, and it was a sleep study lab. So
Mm.
basically, like, I was doing stuff like perfusions and like mounting
Ooh,
slides and doing like microtome stuff. But
this is
honestly,
a
like,
mouse model. Mouse model.
yes,
Ooh,
yeah.
okay. Well, I love mouse perfusions. It's just so fun. Okay, I know
Oh my
that
gosh.
sounds evil, but
We sound sick if we say stuff like that, but as scientists, like, we know what's up.
yeah,
I
yeah.
do.
Hmm.
But honestly, though, I think after working that lab, I realized that, maybe working with mice was not my thing. Because the thing is, like, what people don't tell you, like in undergrad, is like you got to clean the cages, you got to
Oh,
feed them, and like since we were like studying sleep, like you got to be up in the middle of the night doing like injections,
oh,
and like
yeah, yeah.
I remember I spent a lot of time like building like little teeny tiny electrodes to like put on the mouse's
Mm-hmm.
skull to get like their like EMGs, like
Mm-hmm.
the electro waves or
Right,
whatever,
right.
to
Yeah,
like look
yeah.
at their sleep patterns. And I was doing stuff like analyzing their like brain waves and stuff. But
Uh-huh.
honestly, like, I was just an undergrad student, so I'm sure they gave me like random busy work. And
Yeah.
I was thinking that it was really important at the time. Probably not.
I feel you. I feel ya.
And it wasn't until I started my current job, I mean, no, not my current job, but my last research job, that I
Yeah.
realized, I was like, wait, my colleagues who were like more senior than me spilled the tea. They were like, low key, we don't want undergrad students, because it's like
Eh,
they make more work for the lab, and I don't think people know
mm.
that.
Training undergraduate students, and I don't blame undergrad students at all. It's part of the process. Training or just training anyone in the lab takes a long time. If you want them to be a successful scientist, a lot of training is required, a lot of time is required. And so whenever I had undergrads or I had to train other research technicians, like I would develop my own protocols, teach them the protocols, and also like teaching the concept as to why, and also just like giving advice and tidbits for every step of the way. If they spend a lot of time training you, it's because they care about you, because they genuinely care. And they also want to make sure that you're doing the right thing and that you don't mess up. But I feel you, like a lot of time was just taken out of the day to really train new undergraduate students and new people in the lab.
Yeah, that's just a sidebar, because it's I just remember like being an undergrad and just like feeling like, oh, like this is so cool or whatever.
Hmm.
Not that science isn't cool. Science is always cool, but it's just like the truth is like, if something's really important to your PI, odds are they're not going to give a kid like
Hmm.
said experiment or like said
Yeah.
important sample,
Well,
or
I guess it depends
you
on the
know.
PI as well. It depends on the PI. At the institution that I'm at right now, there are a lot of like wonderful PIs that really genuinely do trust the undergraduate students here. Then again, like this school is their undergraduate program is very, very good. It's a private university, and I'm almost certain. No, I mentioned it in my previous episodes. Yeah, I go to Rice University. I don't go here. I'm lying. I work at Rice University, and the undergraduate students here are like phenomenally smart. They're up here, and when I was an undergrad, like I'm like bottom of the barrel. Like they're
No,
incredibly
I'm sure
smart.
that's not true,
No,
Gary.
that's the reality of it. And I'm just being realistic. I'm just being honest. So my take home message is, guys, if I'm bottom of the barrel and I'm able to work my way up, then all y'all have potential.
Yes.
All y'all have potential. But yeah, like I think it really does depend on like the institution and the PI. But I think in your lab, maybe your PI just has like maybe perhaps I don't want to say trust issues, but perhaps they wanted to allocate specific projects to like the
Hmm.
more senior, the higher ups,
Hmm.
which
I mean,
I can
what
kind of
was
understand.
nice about the lab that I worked in undergrad was that like there would be times where the postdoc would be like, hey, like, I'm gonna give you a task, but I'm just letting you know, like, RPI is expecting it to be perfect, because this is actually something that like is gonna might end up in a
Yeah.
paper or something like
Well,
that.
that's
And so
very
that's
that's
nice.
very
But
nice of them. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so there, it wasn't always that, but I would say, like, if I'm being honest, like the majority of the time, the things I was doing, like, was definitely just like a little bit of busy work, or like just to
Hmm.
teach me
Yeah,
skills and stuff, which is like still important.
yeah.
But anyway, like, I learned from that experience that, like, yeah, mouse work can be quite gruesome, not very
Mhm.
glamorous, which is cool, but like, I think like many people like
Hmm.
who want to work in healthcare, like if you ask any of one of my friends, like from
Hmm.
the time I was like little, I've always said that I wanted to be a doctor. So like
Hmm.
I always like imagine like working with
Hey, you and
people
me
and like
both. You and me both.
it's more like a part of my trauma, but
I feel like
uh,
maybe there's like this within the Vietnamese American community, like with us being children of immigrants. Maybe there was like this underlying pressure to pursue a doctorate's degree or pursue a master's or engineering or law degree. Definitely, I felt that pressure growing up. Did you feel that pressure growing up?
yeah, kind of. So like it's tough because like my parents never outright said like, oh, like you have to be a doctor or something, but like I do remember one time I was like, oh, like what if I go to business school or something like that? And
Yeah.
they were like, oh my God, like that's so risky, all this stuff. But it's like to us, we're like, oh, like you work a 9 to 5 and you work in an office. Like that seems safe to me. But like to
Hmm.
what like my Asian parents think of businessman, they think of like stockbrokers or people that
Yes,
like
yes,
or like
yes,
investors, you know what I'm saying? And
yes,
they think
yeah,
like I'm like whatchamacallit, who is it? Leonardo DiCaprio from friggin' Wolf
yeah.
of Wall Street or
I
something. That's what
think
they think.
yes.
But
I think whenever they have like a specific idea of an occupation, they think of like the general stereotype. When I told my mom that I wanted to study theater in undergrad, for some reason, you know that movie, in Crazy Rich Asians when they when the twins they find out Nick and Rachel are kissing. Have you seen Crazy Rich Asians?
I have,
Okay,
but
okay.
I like it honestly, like it's funny because this is like the sixth Crazy Rich Asians reference that I've heard this week. And I'm like, I'm drawing a blank at this. But just
it's
explain it. Yeah.
it's and then they find out that Nick is dating this girl Rachel, and so the twins they texted whoever, and then that
The
message reached
mom, yes, I
Oliver like
remember.
Singapore, and it was like a game of telephone. Well, it was like that in my family, and by the time I got home for Thanksgiving break, word got out that I apparently I wanted to quit undergrad. I wanted to quit college to become a Broadway actor. That was the story. I'm like, no, I wanted to study theater because I just genuinely am interested in this topic and I just want formal training. I have no desire to pursue a career in the arts, but I just want the learning. But I
Yeah.
mean, I think unknowingly I've been using my theater degree for a lot of things. Going back to your story, before the immigrants, we were talking about
Oh, we're talking about the pressure of like having to, be a doctor or
it
whatever.
was it
Like
was before
it's like
that.
in the
It was
oh,
before,
okay.
yeah, it
I
was
don't
before.
know.
I know. Oh my God. I literally do this every
Oh,
episode because it's like it keeps like branching off that we
it's
I keep
okay. But I do have something to add though to our that conversation. But
yeah.
like I truly feel like growing up, like my parents, the three occupations they think exist is like doctor, lawyer, engineer. That's
Yes,
it.
yes,
That's it.
yes,
Like
yes. I
if you're not one of those three things, you're about to be homeless.
yes, I was like, you don't even have to mention those. I already know. I know what you're about to say. I know it.
Yeah, yeah, it's so and honestly like my parents like never said explicitly like you have to be a doctor, but like they always were like you need to do well in school, like I don't
Yes.
want to see no
Hmm.
C's but like B's, like that's a no.
Yeah, my mom
And
too. She never blatantly said I need to become a doctor, but you can just kind of get the gist. Like if you want to do something else, like there's always like a little nudge of like, are you sure?
yeah,
Like if I said I wanted to pursue something sciencey, which I genuinely did want to do, it's like you're doing the right thing. Okay. And so it's kind of like that nudge, nudge. Let me try to
yeah, it's like
push you in the right
what you
direction.
call it, Pavlov's conditioning.
Oh.
It's they're
Fun
like theater
fact.
zap.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Fun fact. Fun fact. I just got a dog. Well, I got a dog like a month ago.
Oh yeah,
And
I've seen on your stories, so
ah,
cute.
and I was going to name him Pavlov, but people didn't like the name because I guess it's not a cute name. So his name is Helix. And I love Helix so much. So what I'm
So
saying is
cute.
everyone get a dog. Everyone get a dog. You said that the seniors in your lab will like give you a heads up of, hey, make sure you do this correctly because it's very important. You cannot fuck it up. You got to do it
Yeah.
correctly. Did that make you feel nervous? Did that ruin, I guess not ruin, but like, did that taint your
I
interest in the lab?
guess no. Like I've always been someone that like handles pressure really well. I don't
Hmm.
know, like you brought up theater, but I'm just gonna bring up the fact that like I like my background, I've like a really long extensive background of like playing classical music where it's like you got to perform. Like, you know what I'm saying? I did the
Yeah.
recitals, I was in
Yeah.
orchestras and concert bands and stuff. And it's like, yeah, I had solos and like all that kind of stuff. And
Whoa, that's so cool. That's so
I mean, it's like really dorky, but
yeah.
like honestly, if I wasn't
No.
doing something very conventional, like working in science, like my parents were like, she's gonna like go to Berkeley College of Music and like be like a
Oh,
classical pianist or something. And like that's like the other thing my parents really thought I was gonna do. But it's like,
yeah.
but I guess they co-signed it because they felt like I had like natural talent for it.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, but I felt like I was good because like same thing with this being a good student. Like I'm just super disciplined. Like I always practice, and like
Mm-hmm.
because I knew I was kind of good at it, it wasn't a painful process for me to practice. I
Yeah.
like trying to do it. But like honestly, like I wouldn't say that I was passionate about it though. You know what I'm saying? Like it would just be
Mm-hmm.
like built into like the programming
Yeah, yeah. And so
of being like Asian. But yeah.
you've been able to handle pressure at a very young age, and you've been able to cope with it as well.
Yeah, I would say like I had, well, although okay, so I feel like I got derailed a little bit like talking about my history, but yeah, like I like went to BU, did some undergrad research, but I have to be honest, and like during my junior year, I would say I was starting to feel like quite burnt
Hmm.
out, and like I feel like that's a common thing that
Oh
happens
no,
to
yeah.
people who are pre-med.
Yeah.
So I feel like at that point I started like questioning things a little bit. I was like, okay, but I can handle the pressure. Like,
Yeah.
I've done this for 2 years. Like I can just finish my degree and like see
Hmm.
ride the waves,
Yeah, yeah.
and then
That
like
quarter life
after
crisis, right? That quarter life crisis after you
yeah,
graduate. Yeah,
and
which is normal, which is normal.
yeah, yeah, and honestly, like I was like so burnt out that I was like, I feel like I can't study for the MCAT right now because like at that
Mm.
point I really like thought I was gonna go to med school. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, like I just feel so overwhelmed. Like I'm not gonna study for the MCAT right now, and also like I feel like if I feel burnt out now, if I go straight into med school or something, like this
Hmm.
is like a recipe for disaster, right?
Girl, we love a queen who prioritizes her mental health. We love that. We love that.
Yeah, it was, yeah, I felt like it was the right decision for me. So yeah, I graduated from BU and I was like, okay, like what do I do to buy myself some time to make this decision or
Hmm.
like figure myself out? Because I was still like being, oh, like do I want to do MD, do I want to do PhD, do I want to do
Hmm.
MD, PhD?
Yeah.
And that's why I got a job as a research technician at said large
Yeah.
hospital in
What
Boston that I can't name drop.
you and I both shared a similar path. Um, I feel like I mentioned this in my previous episodes, but I'm not entirely sure. After graduation, mostly it was senior year in college, and a little after graduation, I just like went through this quarter life crisis of it was either going to grad school or going into med school through the MD PhD route. And took my MCAT twice, got a 507, and 507 is like average in my opinion. It's not like up to MD PhD standards, and
Mhm.
so I just did not want to take it a third time. And so I've heard of stories of like people going into medical school and trying to like weave their way into the PhD program. So not necessarily like apply through the MD
Mhm.
PhD program, but just like apply as MD and then talk to the graduate school and try to ask to add PhD to the track. But I think working as a research technician also bought some time to like really take a step back and think about while your mind is kind of I want to say like on autopilot, but like there's a security of okay, I'm a research tech. I have a job. I am somewhat financially stable, but now I have time to think about what I want to do in the future. And so there is some mental and financial stability of working as a research tech. And so that's what I did for a couple years. Is your path like kind of similar to that too?
Yes, exactly the same.
Oh my gosh, yes. It's the fact that we're both Vietnamese American
I
telling
know.
you.
No, this is why I'm telling you. I was like, I've never met this kid. Obviously, I followed you for a really long time, but I was like, literally, I feel like I know you, and I'm like, we have so many things in common. I was like, we're the same person. Okay.
It's very rare, like I said, to find another Vietnamese person in research. And it's just very shocking to see that we have a lot of similarities. And I wonder if there are other people that's not Vietnamese that have followed the same paths as us. I'm just overwhelmingly shocked and happy. Wow, okay. Also, another similarity, the labs we worked in as a research tech was really toxic.
I feel like your experience is an extreme. I would say like if yours is a 10, mine is like a 7.5,
Okay, okay.
7.58.
I should not take
Um,
that back because you did mention that your PI is like a good person, but it's the managing style that you did not agree with. Right.
Maybe I'm still processing the trauma.
Yeah.
Because I literally just got this
Wait,
job,
you
so it
you and I,
could
you and
be.
I are very similar. Like at the time when I was going through that lab, I didn't know that it was bad until like I look back now and I'm like, dang, like it's actually pretty traumatic to a point where a lot of things do trigger me. And it sounds like I don't know. I when I tell my current lab members about a lot of my experiences in my previous lab, they all agree that it's toxic. But I think there are times that I'm like, I don't want to mention too many things that trigger me because I'm afraid that it would come across as like,
Like poor me or like
yes, exactly,
victimizing
yeah,
myself. Yeah.
exactly. I hate the Slack notification sound. Of course, we use Slack in lab. You know what Slack is, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, my old PI had like the specific tone, and every time I hear that tone, I just think of my old lab, and it really is like Pavlov. I'm just like,
Yes.
oh my god, triggered. Okay,
This is like the common theme, like
yes,
or
yes.
conditioning.
I hate the fact that we had to bring up that science fact, and also we had to memorize it for the MCAT too. So
I know, I know. It's like
psychology
I like I
101.
it's like what they say, like kind of like doctors are the worst patients because they're always like trying to diagnose themselves. And like, you want me to know
Yes,
what's wrong with
yes.
me?
Oh, okay, wait. This brings me up to another point. Okay, when I was like a freshman or sophomore in college, I still swam, but I didn't swim competitively. Despite not swimming competitively, I still like shaved my entire body. I swam throughout high school. I swam
Wait,
competitively
this is
through.
another connection because I was also a swimmer,
Shut
and
the
but I did
fuck
it
up.
competitively. Yeah, as well. Yeah,
Oh my god. Okay,
when
so
I was young though. Yeah.
I swam competitively through high school, and so I'm already like used to shaving my entire body. When I was a sophomore or freshman in college, I still like continued shaving my entire body. I learned the hard way to never leave your razor blade in the shower because obviously things can grow in the right conditions. I like shaved my like little happy trail around my belly button. These pimple like structures just started forming around my belly button, like four pimple like the walls of these like I guess little bubbles were just so thin that they would just easily pop. I didn't think so much about it. I thought it was just they were just pimples. And then after like a week and a half went by and just weren't healing. In fact, they just kept getting worse and bigger. So I started Googling like what is happening. And I remember I came across, okay, it's either this or this. I forgot what the first one was, but I was like, it's either this, A, or folliculitis. And it's probably the second one, but I'm not too sure. So then I went to the school campus nurse, not nurse, but we had like a little like what do you call it? Like a doctor's office, I guess. And
Like urgent care or like student health.
yeah, student health, that's what it is. I was talking to my doctor, I guess, and she was gonna like tell me what it is, and I was like, I want to see if I'm correct. It's either A or it's either folliculitis, right? She was like, you're pre-med, aren't you? And I was like, I was like, yeah. But I just want to make sure that like, that maybe my critical thinking skills are up to par. I just want to just for my own sake, I just want to know if it's correct. And she's like, well, you're right. It is folliculitis. It can't be A because of X, Y, and Z. And I was like, oh, okay, okay, okay. So then she just like prescribed me antibiotics and then it went away in 2 days. And now I have scars and those little dots. I'm a little insecure now to even like shave that area. So like I let a little happy trail kind of cover the
Mhm.
scars.
If the recording is kind of long, you could always do like two parts if it really comes down
Yeah.
to that. But you know,
I ended up doing that with my next guest, not next one. Well, I'm gonna publish an episode this upcoming Sunday, hopefully, fingers crossed. And with her, we had to record 2 times because the first time she was like, okay, like I really shat on our old lab, so I can't let's redo it. I was like, okay, no
oh
worries.
man, no, girl, I live for that. Please keep it in. No, I'm
Okay.
kidding. I
So
totally understand.
so I think the thing with like spilling tea about our previous labs, specifically with me and my former colleagues, is that we do want to share our experiences together and kind of let everyone know that this is how academia is, this is how some labs can be. But it's tough because I know that some of them don't want to burn bridges in any type of way with my former PI or just anyone that is associated with my old PI. And I know that a lot of researchers at that institution listen to this podcast, and I know that they're talking about this, and I don't want to completely tell everything because
Hmm.
even though I did have some traumatic experiences in that lab, just like you, I don't think my PI is entirely like a bad person. I think her managing style could be a little bit improved. And I always try to give PIs the benefit of the doubt that they're just under a lot of stress and sometimes grant money is running out and they need to publish more papers. Now I'm trying to justify that pushing and bullying and blackmailing the students is okay. Not in any way. But I can understand the pressure they're going through, but there's a better way to deal with it, you know? My current PI, he is just so wonderful. He is so open and transparent with all of us. He believes that if grant money is running out, I think that also builds a closer bond with the lab. If you're able to just be so open and transparent rather than trying to be very what I guess like egotistical and maintain this power, this hierarchy. I can't be vulnerable with my lab. Like I don't agree with that. And I think my previous PI did kind of do that. She had the DP5. I understand there's like a lot of pressure with that grant. The time that I left, it was funding my project. She was a little stressed out to hear that I wanted to leave.
I was just gonna say, like, because I've noticed that you've like interviewed a lot of your friends. That's probably why like the stuff keeps coming up. You're like, oh my god, you remember when this happened? And you go, you're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
very passionate. It's like you, because like you don't even have to explain that much to these people. Like they know exactly whatever story you're talking about. But I
Hmm.
feel like as you bring on more guests and stuff, like you can kind of like dilute that, and it won't feel like you're only shitting on your lab. You know what I'm saying? But at
Yeah,
the end of
yeah.
the day, like my take on it is that if you can't handle hearing what someone's story is or their truth, I feel like that's more reflection on you than
Mm,
something that someone else is saying about you. And
yeah.
like if you're not self-reflective enough to be like, okay, maybe that's like really is what happened or like how they saw it, then that person might be playing into their ego
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
than they want to admit. I think like you should also like maybe reiterate that like good people can do bad things, like it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
it's not exclusive. So
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, for sure. So, like I mentioned, I work at said large institution
Yeah.
in Boston that I can't name drop, but I worked there for 3 years, and honestly, it was quite a ride. I worked there like all through before COVID, during
Hmm.
COVID, after COVID. Well, I guess like it's still like after COVID, but
Yeah.
it's still a little fuzzy, if it's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
over or not. I feel like I've seen my lab in like so many different phases, and I
Hmm.
really feel like I implemented a lot of good things. And like I said up top, like I love my PI as a person. Like I don't think that like his management skills is like reflection of him as a person.
Hmm.
It's just like just some shit goes goes down. When you said like, oh, like there's kind of pressure to perform and there's grants and money involved,
Hmm.
I found that really interesting because like since I worked in a clinical lab at a big institution, like
Hmm.
money was never an issue in my lab. That like never
Mm,
crossed anyone's mind because my PI was a part of a lot of projects, and
I
it was
see.
kind of like an area of what's that word, contempt, yeah, of area of contempt of some of my colleagues who felt like they were a little overworked because like
Uh-huh.
my PI definitely wanted to like use his resources as in people
Yeah.
and like spread them a little thin.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like maybe that has to deal with him believing like, oh, I don't know if I mentioned this, but he is a clinician, like he's a an MD. So
Yeah.
like like
My PI
he
too. She was
yeah,
MD
oh okay.
PhD.
Okay, cool. Yeah, he is too actually. I forgot about that. But anyway,
Holy shit. We have a lot of similarities. Okay. Okay.
yeah, but like so his responsibility was not only being a PI, it was also
Hmm.
being a doctor, like covering
Yeah.
clinics, and like
Hmm.
that made his presence like not like that much compared to a lot of other labs that were just solely focused on research.
Hmm.
And so like honestly, like after I was trained for like maybe 2-3 months, I was on my own. Like I was like had no supervision. It's
Oh,
like
she said Les Mis on my own. Do you please tell me, do you know the reference?
I've seen Les Mis, but I don't remember seeing this.
She's
Is
it's
like the
by
Crazy Rich Asian reference.
no, it's I don't like the Sam Barker version, but if you have a chance, please listen to the song "On My Own." Okay, that was really
Is this
bad.
the with Anne
No.
Hathaway, like
Okay, so
right?
that movie. Oh gosh. Okay, Hugh Jackman is good. Anne Hathaway's good. Girl, Russell Crowe though. Russell Crowe. Sam Barker is all right. Like I know she's on Broadway. But I specifically don't like her rendition of
Mm,
I don't like the songs that she's sing in the movie Les Mis, But if you have a chance, please, please, please listen to, I believe it's called the 25th anniversary something something Les Mis on Spotify. It
Okay,
is
I definitely
so, so
will.
good. Now that version is really good, but if you want to hear a really good, sexy version of On My Own, search up the French version. It
Okay.
is French. Oh God, literally cream. It's just that version is so, so, so good. All right, but anyway, backtracking,
Right. Back to what we were talking
back,
about.
back.
What were we talking about?
Oh
Management
gosh,
styles.
management. Oh yeah. So after working 3 months, you were on your
Oh,
own.
right. Right. And like he was literally like never there and we had a lot of independence and honestly, like it wasn't until like a few months in I realized that okay, I guess like this is kind of important to mention like before basically the reason why I was hired is because a former lab manager left and
Mm,
at my institution the department I worked for, I don't know if this is the same across the board, probably not now when I think about it,
mhm,
but at my institution like there's not a lab manager role really that exists within an individual lab. Like
mm.
we have like a floor wide lab manager that handles like shared lab space, but our individual
Oh,
lab
I see.
technically didn't have a lab manager.
I see. I see.
What basically our institution, because like basically like the job title didn't exist at the institution
Hmm.
at all for that
Yeah.
level of management. Basically, what the expectation was a research technician would take over that responsibility on top of being a research technician. Does that
I
make
see.
sense?
Yeah. I think also like from lab to lab, the role of lab manager can vary a bit. In my previous lab manager, they handled orders, equipment, supplies, and just like maintaining some things for the lab, like mouse colonies, fly colonies. Are they called fly colonies? Fly stocks. Fly stocks. That's the word I'm looking for. Fly stocks, maintaining cells, stuff like that, just like maintenance for some things and ordering some things for the lab, making sure that the lab is able to keep going and keep
Mm-hmm.
doing experiments. What did your lab manager, your floor wide manager, like what did they do?
They were in charge of like managing the space. So like I'm trying to think of a way to explain this that's not too revealing. Basically, like they were in charge of handling stuff that like the floor would share. For example, like figuring like I say like there's like a flow cytometer or some type of piece of
Oh,
equipment that like
yeah.
everyone low key needs. Like this person would be in charge of figuring out how to split the cost between every single lab. Or this person would be in charge of like making sure the dry ice order comes in on time because the whole floor shares that one dry ice
Oh,
whatever
I
shipment,
see.
or the liquid nitrogen and like manage the liquid nitrogen systems or make sure that there's enough backup freezers if like an individual lab's freezer
Yeah,
fails,
yeah, yeah.
stuff like that.
That's interesting. My previous lab, the person that did all those things were the administrators, and we had different levels of administrators. But that's interesting. Wow. So in your lab, what would have been a lab manager in my lab, in your lab was the research technician. But on top of that, you had to do your own experiments.
Yes. Yeah. So
Oh
like I
gosh.
said, like so she was in charge of maintenance stuff, like for the whole
Yeah.
floor, like just
Mm-hmm.
like emergency
Yeah.
situations,
I see what you
making
mean
sure
though.
alarms work, whatever, making sure we're in compliance with like fire safety, stuff like that.
Right.
Low key, the lab manager, I guess like some labs didn't even have a lab manager, but ours did. And the one that I had left when I joined was there for 5 years. When I joined the lab, I was basically replacing the previous lab manager.
Yeah.
Although I was considered like a research technician because basically the remaining research technician became the lab manager because he had been there longer, right? Because he was more
Oh,
senior.
yeah.
Anyway, but the prior person that I replaced was there for 5 years, and basically there was already like a status quo already established, and they
Yeah.
really depended on that one person because 5 years that's a long ass time to be a technician.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. And so then all the responsibilities are now put on you, but you just joined the lab.
Well, not on me. It was they were put on the remaining research tech because there was two research techs.
Oh, okay, okay, I see.
One of them left, but that was the lab manager, and then so then that remaining one became the lab manager
Gotcha.
when I
Okay,
joined.
okay. I see. I gotcha, gotcha. Oh
Right,
wow.
and this is where the drama starts.
Oh, 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 oh no. Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready.
So I think in my yeah, when we were like emailing back and forth, I mentioned like I have a bad coworker
Mm-hmm.
experience story, and this is said coworker.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I had this coworker who in the beginning, like when he was training me and he was a lab manager, he was, great. Like we got along so well. We like listened to this same music and like we just could like talk about random stuff and like,
Yeah.
he would tell me about his relationship problems. Like we were buddy. And it was like fine, right? And then we would split responsibilities and stuff, but he basically got into a relationship and which like and also since he now was the supervisor, like he was more senior to me and like had no supervision, he just went off the rails after I
Mm,
had gotten my full training and was slowly like taking on more and more responsibility as
yeah.
I was staying there longer. And like me being like fresh out of college and brand new, like at my
Mm-hmm.
entry level job was like always
Yeah.
like became like a yes person. Like I was just like, oh, you need me to be here and then take the shuttle to the other campus and do this. Like I can
Yeah.
do that. I can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly I just kind of realized that like I was doing like 80% of the work. To backtrack a little bit, like this person would just do the craziest stuff to me sometimes. Like I remember it was his turn to, oh wait, maybe I didn't talk about the type of research I did yet.
Is it important to the story?
It kind of is,
Okay,
yeah, to
okay. As
explain
it
like
then
what type of work we were doing, where like the time management thing is like kind
okay,
of
yeah, yeah.
important.
Then go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't go into this quite yet or explain what kind of research we did, but I worked in an allergy lab
Mm-hmm.
within a large institution, and
It's a food
basically,
allergy and the immune system, right?
yes, yeah. So we
Okay.
worked on like a lot of like adjacent topics too, like within the lab, like microbiome
I
and like
literally was just gonna say that.
vaccines and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And yeah. So anyway, basically my PI, like even though he had his own research projects, he was also like a collaborator and worked
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of industry sponsors. And so, like I mentioned,
So
I
deadlines
worked
are
in a
important, right?
yes, I worked in a clinical lab. So what that means is like at one camp, it was kind of a confusing the way our lab was set split up because basically our wet lab was in one campus and our like actual clinic where like patients and subjects would come in was at
Yeah.
another campus.
Right. Right.
So like there was a lot of like back and forth
Oh,
of like being able to time your arrival to pick up samples at one location and then come back to
yeah.
the lab and actually do the processing or like whatever.
Oh, I see. Right.
But this is important to the story just because punctuality is key. And also like could end up spending a lot of time working like late if you like got stuck in rush hour and stuff like that because
Yeah.
Boston traffic is horrible.
Mm.
That like you've mentioned you've never been here, so you don't
Yeah.
know that. But
Hey, I think the worst traffic I ever sat through is in LA. And that is probably the
oh
that is
yeah,
probably
LA's
the
probably worse.
yeah, that's the number one reason why I don't want to live in LA. I don't like the traffic there. I love the weather, love the temperature, but I hate the traffic.
Yeah, like I don't know, Boston traffic, like there's certain areas of Boston where like there's like only one way to get there. So it's like
Huh.
if everyone is going
Oh,
that
it's
one
like
direction,
bottlenecking into that one.
yes,
Wow,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, but anyway, like going back to what I was talking about, like my like my previous lab manager like would do the craziest stuff to me and be like it would be his turn to cover like a visit in the clinic and like pick up samples and stuff. And he basically would tell me like, oh, like so I can't do this because like I told my girlfriend that I was gonna watch a movie with her. And he,
Well,
right. And I was like, it's 3 p.m. Like it's not even like, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
some people like work 9 to 5, and that's like
yeah,
one
yeah,
thing
yeah.
where it's like if you have to work late, usually that's a schedule worked out, like an
Mm-hmm.
agreement or something.
Yeah,
And I and like there have been times where I would just like look at him and be like, what the fuck are you on? Like
yeah.
it's not my problem that you
Right,
made a date
right.
with your girlfriend and
Yeah,
didn't know your work schedule. Like that's not my problem.
yeah.
And
How did
but
you deal with
like
it?
I just didn't. Like I just was like, okay,
No, see, that's
no
no,
worries.
that's the first problem. You if you like are willing to do it, then he knows that he can keep taking advantage of you. But it's not your fault
That was
because
naive me. That was
yeah,
like,
yeah. Hey, I feel like we have to go through these things to like learn how to put up boundaries and like also uphold our stature and make sure that no one fucks with us. You
yeah.
know?
Or like, like I really believe in like having good coworker relationships, but like
Mm-hmm.
if I could go back and be like, okay, I'll do this as a favor to you. You know what I'm saying? I didn't even
Yeah,
like make a deal out of it. I was like, oh, no worries. Like I'm not doing anything anyway.
yeah.
Should never ever fucking do
Yeah,
that.
never also never say like if something really is bothering you or if it's a big deal, never say like, oh, no worries. It's no big
Yeah.
deal. I have, I was gonna say I had, but I still have that problem of doing like, it's okay, no big deal. And
Yeah.
then I like 5 minutes later, I'm like, oh gosh, like why did I say that? Like it does
Yeah.
bother me a little, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's whatever, whatever, whatever.
Yeah. And basically, in like just building into this too, like the reason why, and he would do that type of thing to me all the time because he
Mm-hmm.
basically stated to me one time, he said, my hours, Carol, are 10 to 3. And that's it. And I remember like maybe back then, like I thought that was kind of like unreasonable or unfair, but then I was like, well, he's like been here longer than me, and like maybe this is just like the
No.
way it was,
Yeah, yeah.
like you would cover shifts or something, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like, but I was just like too naive or like maybe self-conscious to like ask somebody like, hey, is this okay? Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
know like if this is just like what him and the previous lab manager like what his arrangement was with him
Mm-hmm.
or something. But like I guess like because I'm the less senior person, I just have to deal with it and make up for the hours that he's not here and just
Mm-hmm.
do everything that's like from 3 to 6, which is kind
Mm-hmm.
of unreasonable because we all have lives, you all don't want to
Yeah.
be at work after hours or whatever.
I think
um
I think the more
but
that
yeah.
we go through these experiences and the longer time that we have to think and dwell on it, we look back and realize like, wow, that's a pretty much fucked up thing that they did. And one thing that you just reminded me of what my PI said when I was in her lab, where like I was a research technician and like we're only required to work for like at most 40 hours and we work overtime. Obviously, we get paid overtime. But because I really was trying to like work to publish a paper, I really didn't mind working overtime. But it came to a point where like I was just working too much and inevitably I got burnt out. Couple weeks I was involved with improv theater and I would leave at like a pretty reasonable decent time. Like I would come in around 8, 9 a.m. and I'll leave at around 7 p.m. And when my PI kind of caught on that I was leaving early, we had like this urgent one-on-one meeting in her office. And she was like, Darian, like, is everything okay? I noticed that you've been leaving lab earlier. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm now involved in, an improv troupe. And I just kind of want to do this as a hobby, like extracurricular for fun on the side. And she's like, Darian, like, you need to focus on this project. And she was just trying to like force me to stay later. And I was like, well, like, I do value this project. I think it's very enjoyable. But at the same time, I do value doing this on the side and it's fun. It also like relieves a little bit of stress because, like, for her, science is like her whole entire life. And she worked really hard to get to where she is now. She was a little condescending to hear that, like, oh, you're wanting to do something in the arts. Like, wow, like you're not going to get a
Mhm.
good career out of that. That was kind of like her attitude. And then the one thing that she said that like that frustrated me so much was so the research project that I was doing, we were studying a human neurodevelopmental disorder, but I was studying that disorder in a mouse model. Now, this project was so important to me because I met a lot of the families that have children that are affected by this disorder. And so my PI said, Darian, it's not fair that these children that have this disorder, they have it their entire lives. You you need to work on this project. Science isn't 9 to 5. So why is it fair that they suffer through this disorder their entire lives and you're only working on this project from 9 to 5? That's not fair for
Mhm.
them. I naively bought into that and I was like, you're right. Like I need to stay later. And it really isn't
Mhm.
fair. And these families are depending on me to find the answer. And like I just yeah, it's the same position as you. Like I just bought it and I was like, I didn't question it. But now that I look back, it's like I should have said something. I should have put my foot down, you know?
Yeah, just so manipulative. That's
Yes.
unbelievable.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it's like I guess like that situation's so hard because like that's your superior, like that's your boss. Like what are you supposed to do in that
Yes.
situation?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like at least like for me, like when I was talking about my coworker, like
Mm-hmm.
it was still an awkward situation because it's like he's my peer, like, but he's kind of senior to me,
Yeah.
but we get paid the same, so whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like hard because like I can't police someone that's my peer.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I don't want to like make this relationship weird. I just dealt with that. I dealt with it for several months,
Yeah.
and basically like I had worked there for like 6 months maybe or whatever, and like in December this kid gets engaged, and he was like 24, 25 at the time, and I was like at this time, like I was kind of like, okay, so he's not the greatest coworker, but he's like a nice person, and I like him as a person. We're friends, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm like, oh, like he comes back from getting engaged. I think he got engaged over the weekend in like during a trip that he was on, whatever. And he comes back and I'm like, oh my God, congratulations. Like, I'm so happy for you, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've been at the back of my mind, I'm like, shit, this is going to be another excuse for him to not do work. I started doing the calculations in my mind, being like, okay, how do I make up for his shortcomings once again? Why am I doing the math for this man? Anyway, but then, okay, so basically he comes back and he's like, oh, like, so I already spoke to my PI. I asked him to have a month off because his fiance is like from Brazil, and like basically he was gonna do like a little like engagement vacation and meet her family and stuff like that, which like I totally understand. And I was on, like I said, I was already doing 80% of the work at that point, so I was like, it's fine, they just teach me how to do the 20% left over, and I will carry on for the month. And like he was basically gonna have a small wedding like very soon, and basically I was like, okay, like after he's married, then I'll confront this issue. And basically, and just to give you a timeline, this is the end of 2019 leading into 2020. You know where I'm heading into this conversation.
Oh yeah, the pandemic.
Yeah. So what happened was, it was February, I think. He went on this vacation. And I spent that month covering every single visit, doing all the experiments, like being like not a complainer, keeping my head down. Like I was like, I'll handle this issue when he comes back. Back, and he's like, and I asked him, I'm like, oh hey, like the Monday he came back, I was like, oh hey, like how was your trip, like how did it go, whatever, meeting the parents and stuff. And he was just like, so my fiance didn't come back with me, and he looks like somewhat distressed. And I'm like, oh no, like me being the empathetic person I am, I was like, oh my God, like what happened, and like what's going on. And I think, was Trump still in office at that time? I think so, right? Yeah, so it was a little like weird to like, because basically she wasn't a citizen, so it was just like kind of like a big scene at the airport when she was coming back, because they basically like pulled her aside. TSA pulled her aside and was like, hey, your visa is not good, like, and she basically said something when she was going through customs, saying like, oh yeah, like I'm coming back because I'm getting married. And like, you know, that sets off red flags to people when you say that at customs and you don't have the right visa. Little tip for anyone out there. Like,
hey, I feel like as a Vietnamese, we have relatives that are
we got street smarts, okay? I definitely in the school and stuff like this. You don't say nothing. You say, hi, how are you?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
You move along, okay? But she was a little too chatty, okay? And but basically, but like on a serious note, obviously felt bad for her situation. They basically turned her away and said, you need to go back to Brazil because this is not the correct visa. And we're stressed about you now. And I felt, and he explained the situation. They basically interrogated this girl at the airport, and it was traumatizing for her. Felt bad for them, obviously. And he was distressed about it. He basically, they were supposed to get married in March. He had been back for like maybe 2 weeks, and like asked my PI, like, hey, like, is it okay if I take some time off and like do like a leave of absence for maybe 3 months?
Okay, at that point, I think your PI needs to step in and be like, yo,
you would think. Think. But you see what happened was, he goes, okay. And
that's it. Just
point, okay. He told him, okay. Yes. I remember it to this day because it's like a part of my trauma. And it's also like, because like obviously like we're starting to hear news about COVID like reaching the States and stuff like that around March-ish time, right? And so I was kind of like battling a cold that week, and so that's why
she got the virus.
I don't know if I did, actually. I might have, but anyway, I had a cold, and so it was like the Monday he told me. And then I was like so shook. I was like, okay, I need to plot my way in how to have this conversation with my PI, because 3 months, that's crazy. I was like, I've already been working like this entire 8 months I've been here by myself. Yeah, it was a tough time for everybody, honestly. So I vividly remember the days. I think it was like that was the week of March 11th or something. Anyway, so basically I remember, because I had to basically request like sick days or whatever via email, being like, it's a Wednesday, I think it was March 13th. I was like, oh, like I'm gonna be off these days because I'm sick, whatever. Obviously my coworker, basically one of my coworkers was woke to COVID, like quarantining before I was even, and he was like, Carol, you have a sniffly nose, you need to go home. Like he was like, he berated me. But anyway, this is a coworker, by the way, not to get confused people. But like, anyway, so I like go home and I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna spend the next few days and the weekend to figure out what I'm gonna say to my PI, because like he's gonna think I'm insane for not saying anything for like 6-7 months or whatever, you know. And it's like it's I feel like I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm not gonna lie, like I grew up like in the Boston area, so I'm like, shit, am I a snitch? Like, am I supposed to get stitches? Okay, am I a tattletale? Like,
get out. They get out.
Am I uncool for like, you know, basically throwing my coworker under the bus? But I was like, I can't. This is ridiculous. But this is when it was setting into me that I need to set some boundaries. But anyway, so then like that Friday comes around and we get a company-wide email being like, so the hospital's shutting down. Non-essential workers.
Oh yeah.
Researchers and stuff do not come in.
Yeah.
Because like we need to shut down because the country's shutting down, basically, is what the email said.
Yeah.
And then like I feel like the statewide stuff or the nationwide stuff set in like a few days after that, maybe the following Monday or something. Yeah. And I'm like, oh shoot, like, you know, maybe like I'm in the clear, because like how can this person like leave the country now that like the country's shutting down?
Yeah.
Right. And then so at this point, like my lab is in panic. We're like, what do we do? Like we have like patients that are supposed to come in, because the thing is like I work in clinical research, right? It's just like you don't just stop giving people treatments because of COVID, unfortunately. Right. Like we have to figure this stuff out. And so what happened was like they were basically planning on rescheduling some people, delaying stuff, canceling stuff or whatever. And like the following Tuesday we had like a lab meeting like over Zoom. Yeah. And basically the night before at 1 a.m. So technically it's still Tuesday. Yeah. We get an email from my lab manager saying, I booked a flight tomorrow to go to Brazil and I'm leaving the country.
What the heck?
Yeah, bye.
Oh my gosh.
It was a one sentence email along the lines of that. And like, I'm sitting there thinking like, what is this guy on? Like, is he not like realizing like
how is he so employed? That's what I'm like wondering. Like
the thought process, right? I'm like, the country's shutting down. Like, what are you doing? Leaving the country.
Right.
Ugh. And I don't know what Brazil's healthcare looks like or anything like that, but I was like, this guy's playing too many games. This is why you don't fall in love.
So exactly, guys. If you're in a relationship, break up now. That is the take-home message of this episode. Break up. Okay. You don't need to be in a relationship.
My lab manager basically decided that he wanted to be with his fiance and like console her and stuff. And left the country right when the country announced like a nationwide lockdown. And to be continued, because tea is too good.
Tea is too good.
It rocks my socks off like telling the story, because I've told it so many times, but everyone has said like it's like truly the craziest story.
I'm telling you, I want to make a show that's like similar to The Office or Abbott Elementary. And I think like just these little stories, I want to make like just kind of compile everyone's stories together and put it in this show. And it really shows like behind the curtains, like some of the drama that researchers go through.
I know what my cliffhanger is going to be. In the next episode, you're going to see how Carol Lamb handles confrontation.
Well, I'm excited. Okay, so guys, I have to grab dinner with my lab mates because it is one of my lab mates' birthday. Sharon, if you're listening to this, I will be at your dinner in a couple minutes. All right, guys, we will see y'all later. Thank you so much, Carol, and I'm so bad at ending these. I will see y'all. I will hear y'all next time. Bye. Bye, guys.